Good evening, Generals, and welcome to our series, Men Around the Führer, except it's Girls' Night. So, hear now the chilling story of Maria Mandl, a life born into quiet Austrian landscapes, but consumed by the industrial horror of the Holocaust, a woman whose name became an epithet, the Beast. It is a story rife with contradiction, detailing how a soul raised amidst traditional goodness could ascend to the highest position a woman could hold within the Nazi concentration camp system, becoming the ultimate mistress of life and death. Maria Mandl first drew breath on January 10, 1912, in the tranquil village of Münzkirchen, nestled in Upper Austria, which was then part of Austria-Hungary. She was the fourth child of Franz Mandl, a master shoemaker who ran his own shop, and Anna Streibel, a housewife. By local accounts, Maria was raised on what was regarded as the largest farm in the municipality within a good Catholic family. Indeed, those who knew her parents described them as loving. Her father, Franz Mandl, was known to be fundamentally opposed to the burgeoning shadow of the Nazi Party, instead supporting the rival Christian Social Party, CSP. Maria grew up with three older siblings, Georg, Anna, and Aloysia. Yet even in her early life, shadows touched her family. Her mother suffered from episodes of severe depression and experienced at least one nervous breakdown during Maria's adolescence. Maria's formal education concluded prematurely in 1924 at the age of 12, when she was withdrawn from school without completing an exit exam, needed instead to help on the family farm. She later attended and graduated from a Catholic boarding school in Neuhaus am Inn in 1930. A former classmate recalled Maria as having been cheerful and very nice. Finding steady employment in the small municipality proved difficult, prompting Maria to seek opportunities elsewhere. She moved to Brig, Switzerland, where she worked for 13 months as a housekeeper and cook. Homesickness drew her back to Münzkirchen, only to move again in 1934 to Innsbruck, where she found work as a chambermaid in a private villa. But by 1936, the declining health of her parents necessitated yet another return home. Mandl then secured a position at the local post office and became engaged to a Wehrmacht soldier. This period of relative normalcy, however, was about to shatter against the harsh reality of the ascending National Socialist regime. The year 1938 saw the annexation of Austria by Nazi Germany, the Anschluss. Mandl later claimed that she lost her post office job because she was not an adherent of the Nazi ideology. Her fiancé also reportedly left her for the same reason. Resentment and ambition fused in her heart. Maria Mandl moved to Munich in September 1938. Her uncle, a police constable, was already there, and Maria sought his aid in finding a position within the police force. When no such positions were available, the uncle suggested an alternative, the role of Aufseherin, or female overseer, at a concentration camp. Mandl later justified this choice, claiming she took the job because the salary was higher than that of a nurse. It was, she perceived, stable and well-paid work, offering upward mobility. In this dark turn of fate, Maria Mandl, seeking power and reward after feeling powerless and rejected for not being a Nazi, transformed swiftly. A quarter-century later, researchers would still alongside 50 other SS women affiliated with the SS Gefolge, a support and service organization for women volunteers, as official SS membership was forbidden for women. The apprenticeship was swift and brutal. Mandl underwent a training program rooted in Nazi ideology, which included passing a 20-question examination on geography, history, and significant Nazi Party dates. The rules for dealing with prisoners were clear: prevent escape attempts at any cost, and report even the smallest violation. During the training course, a prospective Aufseherin would be paired with an experienced guard for a probationary period lasting anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks. Mandl's true nature began to emerge almost immediately, aligning perfectly with the burgeoning culture of cruelty. She quickly gained a reputation for brutality, subjecting prisoners to whippings, beatings, and strenuous exercises, often referred to euphemistically as sport. Survivor accounts recall Mandl striking a prisoner repeatedly with a metal key until the woman lost consciousness. In her memoirs, survivor Lena Haag described how inmates would be stripped naked and tied to wooden posts, where Maria Mandl would then beat us mercilessly until she could no longer lift her arm. By May 15, 1939, as the Nazis expanded their prison network, Mandl, along with other guards and prisoners, was transferred to the newly opened Ravensbrück concentration camp near Berlin, the first major camp built exclusively for women. Here, she was involved in overseeing the training program for new Aufseherinnen. Ravensbrück itself served as the primary training camp for SS women. Mandl's enthusiasm and dedication to her savage work swiftly impressed her superiors. In 1939, Mandl had taken on the role of mentoring Hermine Braunsteiner, another Aufseherin. Mandl's duties included supervising daily roll calls, assigning her subordinates, Aufseherinnen, and administering punishments like floggings and beatings. She participated directly in the infliction of savage punishments. In 1940, during a visit to Ravensbrück, Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler authorized detailed rules for punishment by flogging. Mandl worked in the camp's infamous bunker and was subsequently involved in meting out this brutal punishment. Flogging could range from 10 to 25 lashes, but serious cases demanded 50 or even 75 lashes, often administered in installments because the full amount was nearly lethal. Witnesses recounted Mandl seeming to derive pleasure from flogging countless women, inflicting pain that appeared unbearable after just a few strikes. The swollen, beaten areas took months to heal, leaving many survivors scarred and crippled. In April 1941, Maria officially joined the Nazi Party. By April 1942, her dedication to brutality paid off. She was promoted to SS Oberaufseherin, head overseer or chief guard. Maria Mandl was actively building her career through cruelty. The society in which she lived rewarded the more cruel one proved to be. The zenith of Mandl's dark journey arrived on October 7, 1942, when she was assigned to Auschwitz II Birkenau in German-occupied Poland. She succeeded Johanna Langefeld and was promoted to the position of SS Lagerführerin, camp leader or female commandant, the single highest rank a woman could achieve in the camp hierarchy. Her control over both the female prisoners and her female subordinates was absolute. Mandl was responsible for overseeing all female Auschwitz camps and subcamps, including Hindenburg, Lichterwerden, and Rajsko. Though she could never formally outrank a man, the only person Mandl answered to was the SS commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Höss, who held her in high regard. In Auschwitz, Mandl's reign of terror earned her the notorious nickname used by the female inmates, the Beast. Her cruelty intensified, becoming more calculated and inventive. Mandl was feared primarily for her presence during the selections, where she wielded the power to decide who would live and who would die within the hour. For the next 2 years, she participated actively in these selections and other documented abuses. Mandl signed inmate lists and death lists on a weekly basis, effectively condemning an estimated 500,000 women and children to death in the gas chambers at Auschwitz I and II. One Jewish prisoner, Salah Feder, testified at Mandl's trial, recalling a selection in August 1943 upon the arrival of a transport of approximately 5,000 people, including 9 children. Mandl and SS woman Margot Dreschel awaited them. Mandl personally conducted the selection, sending roughly 90% of the transport directly to the cars destined for the nearby crematorium. During these horrific selections, Mandl tortured prisoners cruelly, beating women, men, and children with a whip and kicking them blindly. Sala Feder witnessed Mandl violently tear a 2-year-old child from its mother's arms. When the 20-year-old mother attempted to approach and defend her child, Mandl beat and kicked her so mercilessly that the mother could not rise again. In another selection technique, Mandl often stood at the gate into Birkenau and waited for an inmate to look at her. Any prisoner who made eye contact was instantly removed from the line and never heard from again, presumably taken and murdered. Mandl would also check prisoners returning from outside work details by holding a cane 50 centimeters, about 20 inches, above the ground, forcing every person to jump over it. Those who succeeded were allowed to proceed to roll call and live for the moment. Those who failed were immediately sent to the gas chambers. Her physical brutality was a hallmark of her command. Her specialties included knocking out jaws with one punch and delivering violent blows to the abdomen. Prisoners could earn such punishment for simple acts like keeping a hand in a pocket, smoking a cigarette, rubbing one's nose, or tying a handkerchief crookedly. She almost never separated herself from her whip and baton. She was seen riding a bicycle in front of lines of thousands of women, beating them in the face as she went. Survivor Maria Mandl reported witnessing Mandl kick a fellow inmate to death for simply doing something wrong during roll call. Mandl also subjected new arrivals to searches with a cane to extract jewelry and valuables hidden in women's bodies. Mandl took a savage, specific pleasure in tormenting her victims, particularly children. She would sometimes choose Jewish prisoners as pets, keeping them from the gas chambers to work for her personally, only to send them to their death once her interest had waned. One account describes her selecting a child whom she dressed in fine clothing, parading it around like a puppet, keeping it constantly by her side until she grew tired and threw the little one into the gas chamber. Mandl was also reported to take children into her arms when transports from the Soviet Union arrived, singing to them before sending them to the gas chambers after just a few days. She would also take packages plundered from the dead and hand them out in the children's block. A particularly harrowing incident, detailed in court testimony, described Mandl's organization of mass torture against thousands of women. During a selection in Lager A, the quarantine block, Mandl selected several thousand women who were crammed naked into Block 25. They remained there for 7 days and nights without any food or water. The screams and groans issuing from Block 25 were horrifying, and when the women were finally taken to the crematorium, a block elder reported that there were more corpses than living people left behind. The victims had reportedly bitten their own fingers and breasts and plucked out their own eyes. Mandl's role earned her a decoration. For her services rendered, she was awarded the War Merit Cross, 2nd class. Maria Mandl's life was a study in paradox. She was described as highly intelligent and sophisticated. She possessed a taste for literature, fine cuisine, and, most notably, a passionate love of classical music. It is this juxtaposition, the brutal killer and the music enthusiast, that deeply unsettled observers and survivors alike. Mandl leveraged her appreciation for the arts to advance her position within the SS hierarchy. In April 1943, Mandl, along with Hauptsturmführer Franz Hössler, decreed the creation of the Women's Orchestra of Auschwitz, which would operate in the women's camp in Birkenau. The Germans sought a propaganda tool for visitors and newsreels and a means to boost camp morale. Mandl was intensely proud of her orchestra. She often demanded that the orchestra play certain pieces during her visits. Her favorite music included operetta tunes, popular hits, opera arias, and particularly the part of Sio Chio San from the opera Madame Butterfly. The orchestra members, drawn from many countries, were a mixture of professional musicians and desperate amateurs. The first conductor was a Polish music teacher named Zofia Tchaikovska, chosen partly because her surname sounded like Tchaikovsky. I feel I am butchering the names. My apologies for that. In August 1943, the famous Austrian violinist Alma Rosé, niece of Gustav Mahler and daughter of the famous concertmaster Arnold Rosé, was transferred from Auschwitz to Birkenau at Mandl's arrangement to become the orchestra's second conductor. Mandl knew the illustrious Rosé name, as the family was highly visible in Austrian cultural life, even to the general masses. The relationship between Mandl and Alma Rosé was complex, characterized by genuine respect and strange privilege within the confines of utter terror. Mandl addressed her simply as Frau Alma. Mandl even tried to afford Rosé a more respectable standing by changing her classification from Dutch Jew to Mischling, part Jew. On one occasion, Mandl allowed Rosé to rest in a private room when she fell ill. She even once promised Rosé that she would be the last to be sent to the gas chamber. Mandl, driven by ambition and a desire to make the orchestra professional, understood its importance to her own career within the SS hierarchy. She allowed the orchestra members significant advantages. Unlike other prisoners, they did not have to leave the barracks for arduous forced labor, instead spending their days learning and training. She even permitted an oven to be installed in their barracks, claiming to Mandl that the instruments would suffer during the winter without it. A privilege unheard of in Birkenau, which made all the difference for the members' survival. Yet, Mandl's favor was precarious. She grew aggressive when Rosé recruited too many Jewish women, yelling that she did not want a Jewish orchestra. The music itself served as a grotesque backdrop to mass murder. Survivor Lucia Adelsberger wrote in her book Auschwitz, ein Tatsachenbericht, that music was ordered for every occasion. The women who came back from work exhausted had to march in time to the music. Music was ordered for all occasions, for the addresses of the camp commanders, for the transports, and whenever anybody was hanged. The musicians were forced to play stirring marches while newly arrived prisoners, exhausted from days of travel, were selected by Mandl and other officials for life or death. On Sundays, the women had to perform privately for an SS audience seeking relaxation after an arduous week's work. The camp doctors, those cultured murderers, also admired Mandl's creation. Dr. Joseph Mengele, the infamous Angel of Death, who conducted cruel medical experiments, had an advanced musical taste and spent a great deal of time with the orchestra. It was said that Mengele was sometimes moved to tears by their music. This stark contradiction, high art flourishing alongside calculated depravity, was profoundly unsettling and remains a difficult truth of the Holocaust. On April 2, 1944, Alma Rosé fell ill. Mengele himself ordered tests to treat her illness. She died 3 days later. Mandl openly mourned the violinist's death, allowing the orchestra members a moment of dignity to see her one last time, even though Rosé was soon cremated. As the Red Army advanced, Mandl's brutal reign in Birkenau neared its close. In November 1944, she was suddenly transferred and assigned to the Mühldorf subcamp complex of Dachau concentration camp. Her successor, as head of the Auschwitz II women's camp, was Elisabeth Volkenrath. In May 1945, as the U.S. Air Force bombed the area and the war drew to a close, Maria Mandl fled from Mühldorf. She initially fled into the mountains of southern Bavaria and sought refuge in her birthplace, Münzkirchen. However, her father, Franz Mandl, who had opposed the Nazis, refused to shelter her in the family home. She eventually found refuge with her sister at a farm in Luck. Maria Mandl was apprehended by the United States Army on August 10, 1945, in Bavaria. Interrogations revealed a crucial insight. Mandl was highly intelligent and very dedicated to her work in the camps. U.S. officials filmed her occupying a cell in the former Dachau camp in May 1946. Due to her disproportionate cruelty, particularly toward Polish prisoners, the Americans enthusiastically handed her over to Polish custody in November 1946, pursuant to the London Agreement. Mandl was incarcerated at Montelupish prison in Krakow. In November 1947, she was brought to trial before the Polish Supreme National Tribunal in the Auschwitz trial, alongside 35 men and 4 other women. The massive, meticulously assembled documentation of their crimes filled 67 volumes, testifying to a systematic policy of genocide. Mandl's appearance during the trial reflected the psychological burden of her past. Media reports noted her efforts to maintain composure, but these were often futile, betrayed by her accelerated breathing, unnatural blush, and nervous twitching of her entire face. Mandl initially pleaded not guilty but later confessed on March 5, 1947, to signing most of the death lists during her time at Birkenau. Her defense lawyer, Stanisław Remar, faced an immense moral and professional challenge, feeling he had against him not only himself but also all of society. The defense strategy sought to present mitigating circumstances, arguing that Mandl was merely a low-ranking figure, a pawn of the male-dominated SS organization. Remar emphasized her humble origins, a country girl, the daughter of a shoemaker, who for a long time had been a servant and a maid. He argued that her social advancement, the sense of real power derived from her position, had corrupted her, turning her into a slave of the system, a psychopath, and a sick, seriously ill person. The testimony, however, was overwhelming. Inmate accounts detailed her participation in selection, her pleasure in torture, and her responsibility for thousands of deaths. On December 22, 1947, the Krakow Tribunal found Maria Mandl guilty of crimes against humanity and sentenced her to death by hanging. In the days leading up to her execution, Mandl, who had once been cultured enough to appreciate the finest classical music, spent her time praying and attempting to teach herself Polish. She was held in a death cell next to Stanisława Rachwałowa, a Polish survivor of Auschwitz who had later been arrested by communist authorities. Rachwałowa, proficient in German, acted as an interpreter for the wardens. In their final meeting, shortly before Mandl's execution, Mandl and her cellmate, Therese Brandl, asked Rachwałowa for forgiveness. Maria Mandl was executed by hanging on January 24, 1948, at Montelupish prison, having just turned 36 years old. She was the 5th person executed that morning. She allegedly resisted the guards who escorted her. Her final words, spoken in Polish, were reportedly, "Polska żyje," Poland lives, or "Long live Poland." Mandl's body was sent to the Jagiellonian University Medical College for 6 weeks of experimentation before burial in an unmarked spot. Her father, aware of the atrocities, did not request her remains be sent home. The end of Maria Mandl's life did not resolve the profound questions surrounding it. Her life, mirroring the turbulent, violent era of the Third Reich, remains suffused with paradoxes. For historians and survivors, Mandl's character defies simple categorization. She was described by inmates as a sadistic monster, a purveyor of random, unspeakable cruelties. Yet, former victims' testimonies reveal that she, like other guards, was capable of random acts of kindness, or, in the case of Alma Rosé and the orchestra members, prolonged aid, making her cruelty all the more disturbing. She was, in the words of researchers, human, a truth that complicates the simple narrative of evil. She was the executioner, the sadist and the cultured woman, the tender caretaker of musical instruments, the ambitious daughter, and the supplicant begging forgiveness in her final hours. Her story serves as a chilling exploration of how an ordinary citizen described locally as a nice girl from a good family, so easily chose the path of extreme evil in a climate of hate and fear. Research into her life confirms the unsettling notion that we all have the potential in each of us for good and evil. Even after her death, the truth about Mandl struggled to prevail. In 1975, her death certificate was recovered, erroneously claiming she had died as a concentration camp prisoner and a victim of National Socialism. It took until April 2017 for the regional court to amend the certificate to reflect accurately Mandl's true role as a Holocaust perpetrator. Her family tombstone in Münzkirchen does not bear her name. Maria Mandl is remembered not just for the 500,000 death sentences bearing her signature, but as a figure who utilized culture, the women's orchestra, as both a method of torture and a highly effective tool for her own professional advancement within the machinery of genocide. She truly embodied the terrifying title given to her by history, the mistress of life and death.